Alright guys, welcome back to another video log, and today we're going to talk about contest prep, specifically peak week. Now I've coached over 500 people over the last 10 years for contest prep, and one of the things I became really known for is I don't have people cut water, and I don't have them really cut sodium, and I kind of do things a little bit differently. And I have a lot of videos out there and articles talking about how I do things, but I want to go over just broadly some of the reasons why I do peak week different than other people. The first reason is that when you try to modify a bunch of variables at once, your body is always fighting for homeostasis. And whatever you do, your body's going to push back against you to push you towards homeostasis. And when you look at something like muscle tissue, okay? Muscle tissue is 70% water. If you cut water, if you reduce water intake, while you have 70% water inside the muscle, about 30% extracellularly, you will lose water from the extracellular layer, from the subcutaneous layer, but you will also lose it from the muscle tissue, and in the same proportion. This is what we call something called Le Chatelier's principle. And Le Chatelier's principle is basically where you have a chemical system, and if you have, like, let's say A, B, and C products, okay, it can also be compartments. If you have A gets converted to B and B gets converted to C, if you start removing C, lowering the concentration of product C, you will also, by mass effect, move the reaction from A to B forward and from B to C forward. That way you can help maintain levels of C. So if you remove water, if you're drinking less water and you're starting to remove it from that compartment, yes, some water will come out of the subcutaneous layer, but more water, because of the proportion, 70% versus 30, is going to come out of the intracellular layer. And if you look at, let's say, like a balloon, you take a balloon and you blow it up. It looks tight, thin, okay? You take a muscle tissue, look at meat at the supermarket. It's like, push it with your finger. It is a very soft, spongy tissue. It does not look hard, okay? What gives muscle that hardness and that fullness is the water that is retained within that muscle, within your vascular system. Okay, and that brings me to my next point with the vascular system and vascularity is sodium. People cut sodium, and it's actually one of the worst things you can do. If you want to look great on stage, if you want to be really vascular, you need sodium. All right? There's actually a study they did at Harvard about 30 years ago, and they took men and they had them eat a low sodium diet for about a week. And they looked at their blood levels of sodium, their urinary sodium, their levels of aldosterone, which is a hormone that makes you retain water. Okay? And what they found was that their blood sodium levels didn't change when they depleted them of sodium for 6 days. What did happen was that their urinary levels of sodium went to almost zero. Okay? So your kidneys are like a filtration apparatus. And they basically decide, with regards to urine, what goes in, what goes out of the body, okay, and what comes back, what gets reabsorbed. And if you lower your sodium intake, what the kidneys are going to do, because hormone aldosterone goes up, is they're going to reabsorb sodium, okay? And what they showed was that by day 2 of a low sodium diet, aldosterone had doubled. When do most bro coaches have their clients start to cut sodium? About 2 days out. So you are hitting the stage with your levels of aldosterone, the hormone that makes you retain water, doubled. Because you can't just reabsorb sodium by itself. You have to reabsorb it with water. Okay? So you're reabsorbing it with water. But now, because you've been eating lower sodium, your blood pressure is going to be lower, and you're not going to have the pressure to keep that water in your vascular system, and it can leach into the interstitial layer. So congratulations, you've taken water and put it from where you like it, intracellular, to exactly where you don't want it, which is the subcutaneous layer. So you end up softer and flatter, okay? Further, less vascular. I'm sure many of you, especially bodybuilders, how many of y'all had trouble getting a pump on show day? Most of you will. If you've ever cut sodium in water, it'll be almost impossible to get a pump when you're pumping up, all right? I have so many people tell me this. The other thing that it blows my mind is these people who do cutting water and cutting sodium, they will have a cheat meal after their show, and then they'll post pictures of them looking super hard and vascular and nasty, and they'll be like, oh man, I just didn't carb up enough, when they were eating like 400 or 500 grams of carbs the few days before the show. Okay? It wasn't the carbohydrates you had after your show. I want to be very clear. What changed? What changed was you allowed yourself to drink water and eat sodium, and that's what made you hard and vascular. Think about any time you've been during prep and had a really salty, higher carb, fatty meal. About 2 hours afterwards, you look really hard and vascular, okay? Further, because you've been cutting sodium, when you're trying to load those carbohydrates, when people are doing a carb load, the glucose transporter in your intestine is sodium dependent, and it's been shown in research that if you eat a low sodium diet, the activity of that transporter decreases. So now, not only do you have less fluid in your vascular system, less fluid intracellularly, the carbs that you're pushing in to try to increase muscle glycogen, you're not even getting the maximal benefit of those carbohydrates. And since carbohydrates are undigested material in the intestine, if they're not getting brought across at a good rate, the intestine doesn't just let solutes sit there. It pulls water in to dilute those solutes. So guess what? Now you've pulled water into your GI. It can make you feel bloated and have GI distress. All right? I've heard this from a lot of people as well, that they had stomach aches on show day. Finally, I wanted to discuss one of the other things, because I don't have time to get into all the nuances of prep. But one of the other things that my video guy, Kabir, actually just brought up, which I think is a really good point, is he saw people at his last show eating broccoli backstage. Okay? That is idiotic. For multiple reasons. My clients don't even touch fiber hardly the last 24 hours. Now don't get me wrong, fiber is great. It is fantastic. It makes you feel full, it's satiating, it's thermogenic, it's fantastic. However, one of the reasons fiber makes you feel full is because it pulls water into your GI and makes you feel very full. If you've ever eaten like a half pound of broccoli at one sitting because you were really hungry, you probably felt really full and also really bloated, okay? You don't want to have that feeling on contest day. Any calories you're ingesting, you want to be light. You want them to be calorically dense, but low in fiber, because you want your waistline, you want your gut, you want your GI to feel very empty, okay? So you're going to want to use what we call low residue sources of carbohydrate near show day, okay? So these are sources of carbohydrate that are low in fiber, especially insoluble fiber. And now leading up to that, you want to make sure that you're eating enough fiber, but at least in the 24 hours before show, I minimize fiber intake. That's going to keep extra fluid out of your GI tract. It's going to make you feel less bloated. You're going to feel lighter on show day and less chance for GI distress, okay? So guys, I hope this has been useful. I think one of the big take homes is, especially with my clients, I try to make sure that they're at least going to be in a really good position. I'm not going to screw them up in peak week. I see a lot of coaches change like 5 billion things during the last week, and it's BS. Nobody has any secret. You're not going to outwit, a million years of evolution in terms of maintaining homeostasis. Even if you're doing something like a diuretic can't pick which compartment it's going to pull fluid from, okay? And I can show you dozens of pictures of clients, or more than that, who were absolutely shredded and had drank like a gallon of water and eaten like thousands of milligrams of sodium. Okay? It's about getting lean enough and then making small tweaks in the final week and in the last few days to put that water and kind of push it a little bit where we want it. But you're not going to get some crazy increase of like 50% more muscle glycogen or 50% more fluid in the vascular system. There are no tricks like that exist. That's not how it works. It's about using science and scientific principles and monitoring your client and knowing what they respond to, what foods that they work best with their GI, and putting them in a position to try and get a little bit more on show day and make sure you don't screw them up. So guys, I hope this video has been useful. If you want more information, you can check out my website, biolayne.com. Please like and share this video. And if you have any questions, leave them in the description.